Welcome to the Occult Rejects. I got a very special episode today. I was very excited to get this guest on. I think they had followed me on the Occult Rejects on Twitter, and that's what actually brought my attention to them. And I checked out their show, and I was like, "Oh, they're all about true crime." And I mean, you know me, I do love my true crime. And I started checking out her stuff, and I asked her to come on. And we got Kaylee from Redrum Media. And a lot of time, a lot of times when I have guests on, I would prefer them to cover something that they're very passionate about, or something that they're really big into. I don't necessarily want you to cover a hot topic. I want you to cover like what you're, big into. And that's why I asked her, and she had told me about this case of Prisma Reyes. I have never heard of it before. When I did go look it up, I was actually like, oh, I remember her face on the TV, and I remember this elevator garage video. So I was like, oh, okay, I actually do remember seeing this. And I started looking into the case, and she's been on News Nation, and she's been on Explore With Us, and I listened to that stuff, and I was just like, yo, this is a very, very weird case. In some ways, it's almost very smiley face killers to me, in a sense, or it could be. Just a very strange case. It makes no sense to me. We're going to get into that in this episode today. Before I introduce the guest, I do have Lisa. I got the mad scientist with me co-hosting, and I got the occult, true crime occultist herself, BD Salerno. I figured if I was doing true crime, why not have her jump on with us, make it a party. So I got BD's. I got all her links. If I don't have it in the bottom, I will add it either during the show or after. I'm sorry if I did not add her links. But I will have everybody's links in the bottom. And now for the guest, Kaylee, if you would please let everybody know where they can find your stuff, and maybe just give a little background about what your channel or what you're about.
Sure. My name's Kaylee Palmer. I'm a former licensed private investigator. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Mostly I go under the Redrum Media altogether. Or you can find me under Kaylee Redrum and just my first name in Redrum. I became a private investigator just because I realized I was good at it. I have honestly, so I've like grown up around murder, unfortunately. I had a cousin's cousin murdered when I was 5 years old because she walked in on her parents, or I'm sorry, her mother and her boyfriend doing the darn thing. So it was one of those, like, she went missing. They found her. They found out what happened. My grandmother was murdered by my grandfather. So, I mean, I've been through a lot, and it became, I wanted to be the opposite. Like, I'm not going to be a part of the nonsense. And so I realized I was a really good skip tracer when I was at another job. And I'm like, yeah, I can find people. Let's do this. And it just kind of transpired from there. I started working with a private investigation company and started working on different cases, everything from money, finding royalties when people have passed away or when they're hiding it in divorces, to stalking cases, divorce cases, cheating cases, missing persons cases, and murders. So, I mean, it really kind of covers everything. And I came across the Prisma Reyes case kind of like everybody else. It was in the news, and in the beginning it was everywhere. And I had a little boy, and I had just recently given up my license as a private investigator due to my own medical reasons. And for her to go missing with a little boy, that's my passion. And so I have been about this case for 5 years, even without my license. And it is kind of what keeps me going in the field. It keeps, they say you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. It's the same thing. Like, I didn't lose everything that I just learned. I have to keep
it's still there without that.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah, so I would be completely useless without using my skills, and I feel like I can still help even though I'm not licensed. So I still try to get out there. I started a podcast. Part of it's on Prisma. I also do other cases. Looking into the Sebastian Rogers case right now. My little boy, who's about to turn 7, has autism. So it really hits me when there's another case out there that involves someone in autism. So I just try to, I stick my nose probably where I don't belong too many times, but it gets me here where I am. And I've been raising awareness for Prisma Reyes for 5 years now. And you can also find the information on Prisma. Where is Prisma Reyes is a Facebook group that I run, and any updates that we have, any kind of information that you would like to send, if you know anything, you can get us there. And I would really appreciate if you would follow that page to kind of get some awareness out there. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody go check out that page.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would have to say it's rather impressive. When I was kind of like looking up this case, especially on YouTube, you really seem to be like kind of the head runner for like awareness on the case and helping it out. So it's really,
it's fortunate and unfortunate all at the same time,
course, yeah.
because I would much rather have a group of people that are still trying to. We all talk about the Gabby Petito case and how she's the typical missing. Everybody flocks to the case and they want to find her. It's not like that with every other case, but you still have to keep the drive out there for people. And so I have been out there. I have became really close to her stepfather and her brother and sister-in-law. I've met them actually in person. I have flown to Dallas to meet them, and I reach out to anyone. Like, I've reached out to News Nation. I introduced them to People Investigates and People Magazine, to try, or People TV. They have like a whole series of things, but I got them in touch with Stephanie Bauer, and she does a lot of stuff with true crime, like on Crystal Rogers and Oxygen and People. And so she ended up, or I got them in contact with them, and it was another way to push it out. And that's it. Like, her family doesn't know. Her stepdad is kind of the forefront of her family.
Yeah,
he's not too much into technology. So I said, I got it from him.
All the
got
people
this, man. Yeah, you either got it or you don't. So I said, you know what, I got this. And if there's anything he ever wants to have out there, or her family, then I put that out there. But for the most part, I just try to keep it up to date to keep her name out there and see what we can do. And people that are interested in the case, they contact her page or they contact me, since I put myself out there. And I just really want someone to be able to be contacted anytime they want to talk about Prisma. So if you want to talk about her, I'm right here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much again. I think
Absolutely.
You mentioned it already, but like today is like the 5-year anniversary too of her missing.
I did not actually. She went missing April 17th of 2019 from Dallas, Texas. So today does make the 5-year. I hate to call it an anniversary. Normally you celebrate those things, but that's what it is, of her disappearance. So I'm hoping that maybe, since it is the 17th, maybe we can jog some memories and get some tips in there. People call Crime Stoppers or Mesquite PD, or do whatever it is that they feel that, they should do with the information they have.
Right. Yeah. All right. You mentioned that you used to like find money for people and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can find
it's interesting. I mean, I might be able to. You never know.
It's really interesting. I should have gotten in touch with you before. I'm going to Italy in May, but I remember a while back ago, my grandfather passed away, probably almost 20 years ago. But my family is from Italy, and at one point, he had received like some letter or something in the mail before he died about like our family. I guess over there, like someone passed away, and something was left to him of like substantial value. They own all olive oil companies and whatever. They're into some shady shit. I'm just being honest. I don't know who they are, so it doesn't matter. You don't know who I am. It doesn't do me any good. You know what I'm saying? And when my grandfather was like, "Yo, I want to get that," he contacted a lawyer, and the lawyer ended up telling him, "I would advise you just to leave this alone and don't even go there."
Then that lawyer knows that they're in some deep doo-doo over there. And he's like,
to see what's actually over there.
That lawyer was like, my boots they're not tall enough for that deep shit. Okay. They're just not.
I remember my brother and my cousins were like, yo, maybe if like all 4 of us show up, we got a shot. Are they going to like knock us all off? Like,
it depends on who they are. You never know. I don't
know. Yeah. All right. So enough of that silly stuff. I guess like you even kind of, got into, I guess, like, what was with the case. I guess like wherever you want to maybe kind of give people the, the story of like what happened, if you don't mind. And we'll start from there. I mean, there's plenty of things that I'm sure me, Lisa, and BD will chime in on, and I'm sure there'll be questions, but just start it off, I guess, wherever you think is best.
Sure. Okay. If you have any questions while I'm going through it, don't feel bad at all to interrupt me, because I've, gone over this story so many times. Sometimes I do forget pertinent stuff. So, Prisma Reyes is a beautiful woman who is a mother of a little boy named Dominic, and she would never leave this little boy. I just want everyone to know she would not leave this little boy. So, there was a day, April 17th. I can't remember. I actually want to say, I think it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday or Thursday. And she started off her day by going to work. She had previously been a paralegal at a couple of different places. She had been in the National Guard. She came from Veracruz, Mexico, and actually came to the United States because her mother married her stepfather, Dan. For clarification, we do talk about Dan and we call her stepfather, even though her mother and Dan have divorced. That is the only dad she's ever known. Her dad, allegedly her biological dad, died in Mexico, and we don't know his name. He drove off a cliff is what we know. So Dan is literally the only dad she's ever known, and she met him when she was really little because her mom started dating Dan. So they brought Prisma over to the United States, and she became a citizen on her own. She went through the citizenship testing, and she, went to the National Guard. She even went to schooling for her paralegal.
So she actually came over like the legal way.
Yeah, absolutely. She did everything right. She did everything right. Like she had a way to cheat and didn't even do it. She literally came over here and did it the right way, and she was
and then
so
actually
proud
joined
of
the
herself.
service too.
Yeah, she did. And she was so proud of herself. And unfortunately, she did have an injury while she was in the National Guard. So she wasn't there too long. It was a career-ending injury. So she left. And that's when she decided to become a paralegal. And she worked for a few different offices over the years. And I've spoken to some of the employees she worked with and also some of the actual bosses that she worked under, and they never had anything bad to say about her. Everybody just loved her. So she has a really great background. And on the day she went missing, she had started another job at a it's interesting because she ended up leaving an attorney's office and going to a car dealership. It's like it's called 123 Tex Auto, but it's like a buy here pay here kind of thing, not like a big dealership like Ford dealership. And she was a receptionist there. And so it was kind of an interesting job switch. However, she ended up going over there. And the day that she went missing was like any other day or supposed to be. She was on her way to her job. She shows up. She received a few phone calls. She talked to her mom. Her mom told her to just watch the incoming storms for that day. It was supposed to get pretty bad. And so she had also received a call from her son's school. And she called them back. Not really sure what they talked about, privacy and stuff. But she took a few phone calls. She shows up at work. She gets in a dispute about a parking spot. I guess I know it's so stupid. Like some of this is so stupid.
Heard that, I was like, this sounds like so realistic now because that's like the petty.
It is.
It is.
She pulls into this parking spot, and I guess this lady or whoever else was working there, she had been there longer. She thought she had some seniority, from what I understand, and was like, "You're in my parking spot." So that's just, if you're having a bad day or not, that's just one more thing to put you over there.
She should have pulled the gun then.
Yeah.
Of all times, I mean,
what is this?
Let's start this morning, right?
Everybody does it in road. Yeah, at any point in time.
Just now we know where the road rage came from. It was that lady in the morning. I know we're jumping ahead of ourselves.
Really
Sorry.
You got to make light out of a difficult situation, or it'll literally drive you crazy.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, it's insane. So she got over that. Shortly after she got there, she went to lunch. And the thing about her going to lunch is that she actually went to a destination that is about a half an hour, give or take, from where she was working. And the average lunch is only a half hour to an hour, and she was due back at work, to our understanding. So she leaves and goes to a place called E-Bar and meets her ex-boyfriend, Ryan, who are trying to kind of rekindle their relationship. Well, like I said, E-Bar is a half an hour away. Ryan was already there. He was waiting on her, and he had talked to her shortly after she got out of work, kind of, I guess, letting him know, hey, I'm on my way. And so from there, we're immediately like, okay, she was either ticked off enough at her job that she was like, forget this, I'm not going back, or something, it just starts off there. Okay.
That's what I think. Yeah. I don't want to, I hate to interrupt, but like, I just say it now and don't bring it up when we're like 30 minutes down the timeline.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, I really do think, as we were saying this earlier, there might have been something transpiring beforehand that I think by the time she got there, she already knew she was not going back to work. I think the fact of her even walking into that place, she was not going back to work. So
she could have only
already, possibly.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt.
No. I have a quick question. So she was
Absolutely.
working at a law firm. I think it was Ramos's law firm or something for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. Did they say why she left that to go to the automotive one?
She had not worked there that long. She did work there a while.
Okay.
I have talked to the wife of the owner of that, Mr. Ramos's law firm. I have been told a few things. That's unfortunately not something I want to discuss because it is something that can just get into something that doesn't need to go anywhere. However, she either left or was told that she should leave based on a circumstance that really is unfortunate and wasn't her fault. So I'll say that. And I do wonder, I know after Ramos, she did go somewhere else. But I don't think she was there very long. And that's when she went to 123 Tax and Auto. I do know that, and again, we've all four of us have talked about this prior to this, and Prisma was an exotic dancer. So it's possible that she was working at night. She had people to watch her son. She was pretty family oriented with her mom and her sister and her brother. And there were times where they were living together too. So she did have extra, time, extra eyes on her son and stuff. And she was making really good money. Seemed like she liked to meet people. And when she wasn't in the National Guard and in school anymore, she didn't really have that outlet to meet people. So that could have been a reason why as well. However, it was something she enjoyed and it was quick money, and she liked to take care of the people she loved. So she would get this money and then she'd take them out shopping. She would get her Louis Vuitton bags and take them out to dinner, and everything was on her. She liked to treat her people. Her people were her people. And so we don't know if at that time, because of what she was doing, we've even talked to law enforcement to try and find out if they knew other money sources coming in, to see if she was just maybe like, forget this job, it's not worth it to me. And maybe to kind of get some more direction on why she wouldn't go back there. Because like a parking situation would upset me, if it was petty, but it's not something that's going to make me lose my income and, lose my home. That's not what you get over it. She was old enough at the time. You just get over it. So we have tried to look into that. And I think that there was another source of money, possibly. We've called it sugar daddy. You can call it whatever you want. I don't judge her. I don't even know her. And I spent 5 years looking for her. So I don't care what it is that she was doing. It would just lead us to know more about maybe why she left that job and where she was thinking about, she had to have a backup source of something somewhere. So we knew, if she met up Ryan at E-Bar, she literally would have to turn around. Even if she had an hour, she would have to get there, give a hug and say hi and turn around and leave. And
now she also called Ryan Matt, if I'm correct, right?
There's a whole thing.
That confused the crap out of me. And I do want to mention real quick, as people are asking in the chat, I could be wrong, but I think the ex and the baby's father are actually two totally different people as well, right?
Yes, they are two totally different people. So
that started confusing me at first. I actually had to write notes and
So the ex and the child's father, his name is Arturo. And he was someone in the beginning, I was like, I don't know about this. And I'm not even kidding.
No, I know. You admit that. You're like, I don't know. You would say, he's actually kind of the perfect person to fit the,
Yeah, either him or Ryan. They're either the perfect setups or it was the perfect crime.
But I think Arturo, they've even said we've got him on like cameras somewhere else, like not even near, right?
We have his Google Map location. He has an Android phone, I think, or an Apple, but he was using Google Maps, and it was tracking his whole entire location from the day before to the day after. And he has sent them personally to me. He has sent them to the investigator, and they haven't ruled anybody out technically. They've all but ruled him out. In my case, he has been one of the most beneficial assets to this investigation, or us looking into this case that we could have. He's truly been helpful. So the first couple years I was like, no, I don't want anything to do with you right now, because I didn't have anything good to say. And then he was on Web Sleuths and he was like, hey, I'm the child's father. And I'm like, And I got on a conversation with him and I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how this is going to go. By the end of that conversation, we were like this. He is someone I needed on my team. And so they are two completely different people. However, Ryan was kind of after Dominic was born. He wasn't around right away when Dominic was born. I think Dominic was 6 when she went missing, and that's her son with Arturo. Right. Arturo had been out of the picture mostly for a long time. A lot of people suspected Arturo. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead, but a lot of people suspected Arturo in the beginning simply because there was misinformation and miscommunication put out into the public as to Arturo using the disappearance to try and gain custody of Dominic. However, what happened was that the mother of Prisma started working with that law firm that we spoke about prior, and they decided that it's my understanding the law firm reached out to the mom and was like, Prisma used to work for us. Let's help you in your situation in any way we can, and let's help you get custody. And so it was initiated by her mom and an attorney versus Arturo. Arturo was just simply fighting back to try and get custody of his son or some sort of rights to be able to see him. And so it was put into the public that Arturo, 3 or 4 days after she went missing, immediately went to the court and said, I want full custody of my son, when he hadn't seen him very often in the last few years. Like, I think he may have seen him once or twice in 3 or 4 years. Him and Prisma they didn't get along. And that was the best way for them at that time to just kind of go on with their lives. So there was some misinformation in the beginning that led everybody to believe that it was the wrong person.
Well,
and
one thing
that's how that went.
I do want to add to that. I did think that was, at first, I did think that was kind of shady. And I know some people say that they think it is. But I'm going to be honest, and not from my experience, because I don't have kids, but, I've mentioned before that I've had, about 20 years ago, I had problems with drugs. I've gone to rehabs and shit like that. So you come across people with tons of different stories and fucked up shit going on in their life. From my experience, I'm just going to say this from things that I've heard and what makes sense with that. If you lose custody of your child, and then let's say like the mother has it, and then eventually now if her parents pick up custody of that child and you have never once even tried to have custody of it, it's going to be real hard to get that kid 5 years from now, and you've never even once asked for it. So he could have even been looking at this just even for my own self. If I ever want to get this kid, even if they're going to tell me no, I'm going to have to ask now. As shitty as it looks, because if you're not going to ask for your kid when it switches over to somebody else that technically isn't even a parent to it, it makes you look real shitty.
Yeah. And
I'm
absolutely
not sticking up for the guy, but I have seen people almost in situations like this where the kid transfers and they're even told, you better ask for that kid now, because if you don't, 5 years from now, when you do, you're going to get told no because you've never tried to be a father or a mother before.
Sure. And I think that's what a lot of people, when they look in on the case, they're wondering what his agenda was. And even though he didn't see him, he was paying child support, and he lives 8 or 9 hours away from where they were. So people were saying he didn't pay child support. He didn't do anything. He sent me a register from the court. He was paid up on child support. He's now paying child support to her mother. And so there's just different things that were going on that just people didn't understand. And it's more than I would ever have liked to be out in the public. But Arturo has said, I don't care. I haven't done these things and I want the truth out there. He even did an interview with Explore With Us because he just wanted to clear the air. He's like, I'm done with people thinking whatever they want. Ask me any questions. I'm here. And he has come out and talked to me on a podcast that I have for her. And then he's come out and talked to anybody that will want to talk to him. And at this point, the police have said he's all but cleared. In our investigation, like the biggest thing that we can do is eliminate people to try and figure out who's left, because you have to eliminate all the situations that you can. You start with like this. I mean, it's really, with her case, it's bigger than you could even imagine. And you just one by one, you just start scratching people off. Right now, we've had to scratch off Ryan. I'll tell you why in a minute. And we've also had to scratch off Arturo. And that was a good thing for our team. And I know a lot of people, they look from the other side, but I do want everyone to know that Arturo since has completely turned around. He gets custody of like, he has visitation, and his son Dominic does go stay with him. He has either a wife or fiance. They have they have their own family with kids, and he is a part of that now. And he didn't have that before.
Yeah, I even heard Dan mention that, I think, on Explore With Us. He even said, like, listen, I may not have liked the guy, but he is actually getting involved, and he's trying to be friends with us.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I said there was one thing that I needed out of this case before this happened. And I said, I need Dominic to have a family, and everybody that loved him, I need them to be a part of his life. And I got Dan and Arturo to talk. Dan wanted nothing to do with Arturo. I said, listen to me. I need you to understand.
If you let someone step up and do something, you know.
Yeah. I said, I need you to understand that this guy I wanted nothing to do with. And Dan knew it. I started talking to Dan within months of her disappearing. And again, for anyone, Dan is the stepfather. And so I started talking to him just months after she disappeared. I don't like to stick my nose full into things. Like, I started the Facebook page just days after she went missing. But I didn't want, like, I didn't think we'd be here months later, let alone years later. So it was just to raise awareness. And then there was a situation that transpired that I actually did contact him to see if he was aware of. And that's how that relationship started. And I told my husband from the very beginning, I said, if there's anything that comes of this, I need Dominic to know that he has people around him that love him, and that we're going to try and find his mom, or find out at least what happened to her. And so when I relayed that to Dan, and I was like, look, I've been talking to him for the last few months, and yeah, we all thought he was a piece of crap before, but listen, like, he's actually helped me more than, you know, almost anybody other than Dan. And it was just a big, like, they started talking a little bit. They've even met in person. They've hung out together with Dominic. It's really one of the only ways, it is the only way that Dan gets to see Dominic, because Dan doesn't get visitation from the custodial, you know, parent, from the mom. Yeah, well, that's his ex, you know? Yeah. So that was really important to me. And so he has opened up, and he has let Arturo back in his life to some extent, so that he can, I mean, that's also a part of his daughter, you know, like, he was a part of her life, and everyone hated him in the beginning because they're like, look, he's a piece of crap. He kicked her out when she was like 6 months pregnant or something. And there was an argument. Things transpired. They lived together, and he admits he made a really big mistake. And that was part of the reason why he wasn't in the child's life in the beginning. And you get older, you live and you learn. Prisma was really young when she had him, and so was Arturo. Arturo was a few years older, but even in your early 20s, you know, you're not exactly always ready for things, especially when you end up living 8 and 9 hours away from your son. So their relationship has gotten better. Dominic has his family with Prisma's family, and he also has his family with Arturo's family. And so that makes my heart smile, because that's important to me. And I want everybody to know that, that Arturo has been a big part in that. And so he's really not who we thought he was in the beginning. And Dan gets to see Dominic because of Arturo. So, you know, there are some good things that he has brought into this as well. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
All right. So back to, I just want to try to, where do we leave? All right. So she's at the bar, and she has spoken to.
So with Ryan.
Yeah. All right. Because like, I just want to, is there a point where she leaves and comes back to the bar?
There is. So they were there for actually a couple hours.
Yeah. See, that's another reason why I knew she wasn't going back to work.
Exactly. And they had, from my understanding, they have video of the whole time that they were in the bar. They were sitting like at the bar. That you had mentioned that she called him Matt. It's my understanding, we have been told, so family went to the bar. I'm just going to throw this in before I forget. Family went to the bar after she disappeared, and they were trying to get information, anything that they could get, because they were doing their own kind of investigation to try and find her as well. And they're like, we know she was here. One of the bartenders there said she was with a guy who told us his name was Matt. He wore a hat, and I think he had on glasses, or maybe just the hat, but he was trying to be kind of inconspicuous. And somehow the bartenders that were there, they had multiple on staff at that time. They learned his name was Matt. I don't know about you, but I don't go to the bar and just sit there and I'm like, hey, my name's Kaylee. Like, so I don't know if he intentionally did that, or if she called him Matt. It gets a little strange when we find out that Ryan is related to a Matt. So I don't know if that's where that came from, but they kind of look alike. I'll tell you that. So I don't know if he was trying to like get everybody else that was around to think that his name was Matt because he was up to something, or if that's an alias that he used, or I don't really know where that came from. I don't know if maybe Prisma said something about a Matt and they thought, you know, she was calling him Matt. I don't know, but they were at the bar for a few hours. And in between that time, she gets a phone call where she leaves Ryan, Matt, and she goes out, and that's where she leaves. And she talks to the babysitter of Dominic. Now, this is strange as well, because Ryan gets upset and I think this is why he leaves, because she was on the phone for so long. And she was only on the phone with the babysitter when she would talk. Like, we have records for all of April before she disappeared. The longest she was ever on the phone with her was like 10 minutes, give or take. Mostly it was like 2, 3, 4 minute phone calls. And it's to check on her son, things like that, like schedule things, whatever. My understanding of their relationship, the babysitter and Prisma's relationship, is just to the extent that their children went to school together. They met because their kids went to school together. And so Prisma's job didn't allow her to always pick up and keep Dominic after school. So the babysitter, she would step in and Dominic would go over there. Well, this particular instance, they talked for 52 or 53 minutes on the phone while Ryan was inside. And so it's very strange at that point that she would leave him for so long. And it makes me wonder, because the babysitter said they talked about Easter, which was coming up that Sunday. And I'm like, why are you talking to someone about Easter? They're not your family. They're not your, and if you do, yeah, like, okay, cool. Are you having Easter with your family? Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? And for 52 minutes?
Like, did they just read parts of the Bible for that long? Like, what did you do?
I don't know.
2 minutes, like.
They had a whole worship session, okay?
Yeah,
like they were.
You just have church.
Yeah, they did. They went to church that day. I mean, I don't know what you do. Like, I'd be sitting there like, can we go now?
I will say, I think this is just one of many weird things with this case. Like, it's not, something with that babysitter call just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know.
It does. No, it does. Because we always kind of thought that when Prisma went missing, and it'll make sense here in a minute, but we always thought when Prisma initially went missing that she was being followed or someone was keeping tabs on her. Because she, after this phone call, she ends up going back into the bar. Her and Ryan get into a little spat. Ryan leaves, and then she stays there for a little bit. She wants to order another drink. She's cut off because they think she's just had enough. They've seen kind of what's transpired, and they're like, no, girl, no. And she gets mad, and she's like, I want another drink. And they're like, we're going to have to call the cops. I got all of the dispatch calls and the call logs for 911. They did not call the cops unless they called like the non-emergency line. I do know that. However, it was said that she ended up leaving that restaurant, going out to the parking lot, and hiding behind a dumpster. I guess because maybe she was afraid the cops were going to come. I'm not really sure. At some point, she like leaves the dumpster area. I don't know if she goes back in at that time because I had not seen that video, or if at that time she leaves. But in the state that she was in, which at that point, we've only seen a little bit of the bar, and we knew that she had a drink. So we knew she was driving with at least one drink in her system. However, when we see the video of her leaving the bar, she turns right and she like pops over a curb like it's her job. It's just like whoop, and she's in her Jeep and she just like totally goes over it. And then she turns down Haskell Avenue. Haskell Avenue is the same street that Ryan's apartment is on and E-Bar is on. They're a good 1.2 miles, I think, away from each other. So in an hour's time, from the time that she leaves E-Bar to the time that she is seen again on any type of video, is literally 1.2 miles away at Olympus at Ross Apartments. So in an hour, we have had to try and come up with what she did. And we found out on Haskell Avenue, she turned right, and about a mile down the road, give or take, she receives a phone call. That phone call is an incoming call from a phone number that registered out of state, and it's a burner phone number. It literally lasted less than a minute, and we have no idea what they talked about. I can also tell you one thing that was recovered at the crime scene and listed as evidence was a burner phone, a Sanyo cell phone. It was a burner phone. So please keep this in mind as I tell the story. So she receives this call. In my head, shit hits the fan. That, like, I think someone was trying to scare her, or they just put the fear of God in her in some way or another, because within seconds of that phone call, she has somehow gotten into some sort of, road rage incident. Don't even know how that transpired.
Yeah, this is really weird too.
It is. This is not like her, because again, we talked about like if she's going to pull out a gun, this girl is only going to pull out a gun to use the gun because of her actual experience. She knows you don't pull out a weapon unless you plan on using that weapon to its fullest extent. And she somehow takes out her weapon. And there are 3 girls that are in one car. And one of those parties calls 911. And they say, This girl in a red shirt, they described her perfectly as to what we had seen in E-Bar. They say she got out of her car and she started raising her gun to us, and she's yelling at us. And at first, we, like me and my partner and her family, were like, this didn't happen. Like, we couldn't verify it for the first couple years, and we're like, it didn't happen. Well, it did happen. I received the records, and there were more people that called 911, and they were telling about the incident. They're like, this just happened out of nowhere. She literally got out of her car, and they started giving directions on where she turned. Now, this is one of the biggest parts for me, because there is a highway called I-30 right off of Haskell Avenue. She literally just had to veer to the left to get on it. Law enforcement has said since the very beginning that she immediately got on I-30 after this incident, and she went down to White Rock Lake, and it's a good 20 or so minutes down on I-30. Well, from when I received the dispatch log, it's a good few pages long, there are actually other people that were witnessing the situation that were not a part of this situation. And the dispatcher's asking them, hey, where are they? Where'd she go now? What street? And they give a street by street, turn by turn play way past I-30. I think she had been followed. And this is huge to me, because if she were to be followed, you're not going to pick up any like CCTV footage on the highway other than license plate readers, traffic cams, and anything that they have put out there for the security, like flock cameras. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but they flock cameras are things that they're not trying to give anybody a ticket. However, they are keeping location of where cars are, kind of like the license plate readers, and they're trying to just help thwart the crime. Well, they said she got on I-30, went all the way down I-30 and turned around, and then ended up coming back, got off the highway and went to Ryan's. I find out she goes all the way down Haskell Avenue, past a whole bunch of houses and businesses. She makes a right on another street. And on the corner of the street, she ends up turning on to get back to where she was going, I guess, at White Rock. Gosh, it's like a tongue twister. White Rock Lake is actually out towards the direction of where she had been working and kind of where her home was. It's not, they're kind of scattered about, but it's in that general direction. And so she goes a total different way, I find out. Then they totally dropped the ball and missed an opportunity to get any type of CCTV footage, any type of traffic cam footage, anything from where that traffic incident was, or that road rage incident, from the time she actually did get on I-30. And from my understanding and the way that I put things together, I don't think she ever got on I-30 until she turned around. And that means she could have been tracked, followed, or, whatever you want to call it, stalked, anything, for a good about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes before anybody even knew anything was going on. At the time that she turns around, or approximately the time she turns around, because we pulled up Google Maps, we pulled up the weather in the area, and we pulled up what the traffic was in the area. We literally plotted from exactly where she was at E-Bar back to the apartment and where she could have gone in an hour. And we found that she would have had to have gone down. It's like it's not a highway, but it's like a bypass kind of thing. Okay. And yes, and she took that all the way down by where they say she turned around by White Rock Lake. And then she got on that highway right there. So there's a big gap in time that I feel like was a very missed opportunity, especially because she received that call. About the time she turns around, she calls one of her friends, who is a photographer friend. I'm pretty sure he was out of town at that time. And then, if I remember correctly, she made another phone call. But I know she called her photographer friend. At about that time, she would have had to have turned around to be caught on CCTV footage at the time that she was at Olympus at Ross. So, unfortunately, that's one of the biggest blunders in this case. However, the next thing we know is that she ends up at Olympus at Ross, which is where Ryan lives. And Ryan is who she met at E-Bar. So she literally left for an hour to go back to Ryan's apartment. And we have been told that Ryan was not at the apartment at the time she got there. He had already left.
Kaylee, I had a quick question. Do we know Ryan's last name?
We do. I have not given that out because he is not considered a suspect. I don't want to be that person. I've tried to talk to Ryan. He basically told me to go fly a kite. I don't know if you ended up listening to that. I said, listen, Ryan, I know I've got like 3 or 4 minutes on my YouTube channel where I actually had talked to him. I'm like, I recorded it all. And I told him, I'm like, I know you're innocent. I know you don't have anything to do with this. And he wanted nothing to do with it. I'm like, let me help you clear your name. Like something at this point, like the cops have cleared you. Let me get you out of the speculation. The reason why they said Ryan has been cleared is that they have CCTV footage of him leaving the apartment before Prisma got there. They have talked to him. They have talked to the people that he was with. Now, they said he was out of town. What I consider out of town is a good 30 plus minutes away, out of town, actually out of town. He was less than like a few miles away, and it only took him like 8 to 13 minutes, depending on traffic, to get to where he actually was. And so we know that he wasn't very far away, but then we know that he didn't come back until they have him on video coming back when he came back in. And I know it was between like 1 and 3 a.m. And Prisma had not been seen on CCTV since about 6 o'clock. So they said that based on their pings of his phone, the information that they had collected, I mean, again, I've always said he's the perfect, it's the perfect crime, or he's the perfect setup because of how it happened, which again leads me to him, maybe her being possibly tracked because they knew they could set somebody else up. They could set up Ryan. So that's the whole situation with Ryan. I've gone back and forth with law enforcement. Like, okay, are you sure he's cleared? You say he's cleared. What do you mean by cleared? And I've done this a few times over the years, and we've gotten a little bit more information each time. But unless you know how things happen where you can set up a crime, you can pay someone to commit your crime. Unless something like that happened, which law enforcement has no evidence of, he literally has nothing to do with this. So it's strange to me how she leaves E-Bar where she was with him and then goes back to E-Bar. And with everything that transpired in that hour, really leads me to believe that she was in fear of something at that time and needed to go back to a safe place. Like she was familiar with Ryan's apartment. However, they see her pulling up in front of a little access street that kind of gets you. It's not an actual street. It's a street that a company uses. I think it's actually a church. It's like their little road and an access road. She parks right in front of it so that you couldn't use that road, even though there are places to park along the sidewalk right there. There was a lot of construction going on at the time, so I don't know if that kind of confused her or if she was just in a hurry. But she pulls right on up like she is in a hurry. She abruptly stops. She sits there for a minute. We know she had a gun on her because of the road rage incident prior, right? Well, she leaves the gun in the car. So to me, she's getting out, even though she looks like there's an urgency on getting to the apartment. I don't think she had any fear that anything would happen there because she left her weapon. So she follows that the apartment complex is gated. And you have to either have a key or the passcode to get in the door through the gate, or which we found out wasn't working at the time, but she didn't know that. And also, the other way to get in is with a car and having like the thing that I don't know if you have to enter a passcode when you get there, if you just have like a garage code or whatever. But she followed in a vehicle that went in. I do know that she was seen on CCTV footage in the apartment garage right in front of an elevator. And she was talking to a couple people while she was in the garage. One person specifically that she was talking to, they have been talked to. They say almost everybody on her phone list that day, again, has been cleared, but nobody has officially been cleared. She was talking to someone that she had previously dated, but still was friends with at this time. And he said that she was kind of like whopper-jawed. She's kind of like all over the place, didn't know where she was. She kept mentioning Ryan. Like she thought that she was talking to Ryan. She also calls another guy.
Yeah, that
right
was
before. She's like,
I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you just did yourself.
She's like out of it. And so you see her
Ryan and shit. I think
she
like itching at him too, right?
She's like, where are you? Where are you? Like, where are you? So it's very strange because she talked to a number of different people. The one that we see her talking to on CCTV, he was trying to get information from her and like, okay, how can I ping where you are? Like, drop me your ping. Let's do something. Like, okay, if you need help, I'll come and get you. And you see her kind of swinging her keys and kind of like leaning. Well, I've talked to people that one of her managers of where she danced, it's known in that industry. You usually are on something, whether it's alcohol or something. It's normally a stimulant to try and get you out there and doing what you're doing. She's been known to hold her liquor. Girl can hold her liquor. She didn't have that much to drink, from my understanding, at E-Bar when she was there. She had at least a few. But the way she started acting in that hour, from the time that she left E-Bar to the time that she shows up on CCTV speaking on the phone again, she ends up just like, she looks totally out of it. And a lot of people will look at it and they're like, she just looks like she's kind of drunk, or, you know, maybe just lackadaisical. She's on the phone. She's twirling her keys. And I talked to Dan. I'm like, Dan, this doesn't make sense to me. He says, that's what she did when she was kind of anxious, when she was kind of in a mood, when she was not very happy. And she didn't look sober to him. And he's like, I've seen her drunk. This is not drunk. Like, this is different. Now, I do know because we're talking about this, I want to say a few things. In the area where she went missing, it is well known that there are bars that spike drinks. There have been issues. There have been investigations. And most recently, someone was actually busted not very far from where this happened. I do not want to accuse anybody, and I will not accuse anybody at that bar, especially because there is CCTV footage of her the whole time. The main detective, Dustin Barrett, he said that he sees her and the drinks being poured at the whole time, and that nothing was put in the drinks at that point. Now, she was sitting at the bar, so if she left, you'd still be able to see that CCTV footage ran the whole time, and you'd still be able to see her drink. So if she was drugged, it was in a different way, not through that drink. And it makes me wonder who, where, when, and how. However, we don't know what she was doing in her vehicle when she was talking on the phone to the babysitter. I don't know if somebody else came up to her. I don't know. I just don't know the situation. But she wasn't acting like she was just drunk compared to everybody that she knows. Like, talking to them, like, I promise you, she wasn't just drunk. So I think she was just straight out of her mind, not really knowing where she was and what she was doing, and starts just calling people. And she calls a couple other people claiming they're Ryan too. Like, Ryan, where are you? Like, what's going on? And they're trying to help her, and she can't even tell them where she is. And one of these calls happens, and we see her on the phone in front of that elevator. And then we see her getting off the phone and turning a corner. The way that the garage is laid out, it looks very interesting. Like, it looks totally different from you seeing it. It looks like she's in a little room when you see that CCTV footage. She's not. She literally just turns a corner, and the whole garage is open. They eventually released footage of her walking along the opposite side. It was about 2 years ago. And they just said, this is, she's wearing the same thing. We can't prove it's her. However, it meets everything about her. Like, everything. The purse that she had on her bag. Another thing I want to mention, by the way, if you look at the CCTV footage from E-Bar and from in front of the elevators, she has an Apple Watch on. I know that this Apple Watch had a connection in and of itself because she was obsessed with it. Her sister-in-law told me she was mind blown. She said, hey, I'm going to go all the way over here. I'm going to leave my phone here, and you can call me on this number, and I'm still going to pick up all the way over there. So it wasn't connected to her cell phone. It was a different line from what I've been told. I've brought this to law enforcement's attention, and I was told that they never knew she had an Apple Watch. They never knew nothing. So I just want that to be known, because that's another thing. They said that they could not track her because after these random calls she makes at about 6:01 or 6:02 p.m., which is just a few minutes, like 5 or 6 minutes after she enters the garage, her phone doesn't make another call, does not receive another call, and it doesn't just die. Like, a lot of people don't understand, if you turn your phone off and it has battery life, or if your phone dies, it's still operating as far as tracking you. Right. And it'll do that for so long. And her phone, they didn't get anything off of that phone past 6:02 p.m. So to do that, you have to completely destroy that phone, like annihilate that phone. And so it's interesting to me that within minutes, literally nothing is on her phone. Like, it's done. We have her call records directly from Sprint themselves. Nothing, literally nothing. And so something happened at like very shortly after she got there. And there was a lady who Dan had a friend who had done some private security work and had some experience in private investigations. He said, hey, in the beginning, do you want me to help? Do you want me to go try and, see if I can talk to anybody over there and see if they recall anything? He runs into a lady who says that she saw Prisma in front of a 4-door sedan that was I think it was a gray or silverish color. They ended up determining one or the other. And that she was standing in front of a trunk crying, and there was a guy standing next to her. It was also reported that this guy, the same guy, may have been in that garage a few days prior. That's the extent that we know of that. However, our list of people we're looking into, like we're like this big. At least 4 or 5 people that we were looking into had a very similar car at that very same time. So I have even asked law enforcement. I said, can I give you the information that I have on these vehicles? Because they're very suspect to me, and I would like to rule them out on my own and see where we can go past that. I was told, yes, give me the information. Again, I gave them a folder of information through Google Drive that, I can't tell you exactly how big it was, but it's huge. It was all mine and my partner's, who's a death investigator, our research, our findings, our reports, our notes, literally every background check, everything for 3.5 years. And we gave that to him. And in that, I sent a separate link, and I'm like, look, these are the cars that I need looked into. I had some with all of the information and some with half of it, and I knew he could get the rest of it. He never requested access to that information to be able to accept that information and run that through and see if he could watch. I know it's tedious and it's annoying, but I even offered to do it. I said, look, if you'll give me the CCTV footage from a few hours before she even gets there to a few hours after she leaves, I'll start with that. And I just want to weed. I want to weed through these and get these cars out of here. He said, no, I will not release that information. I said, fine. That's when I went to, I'll give you the information. He was okay with that, but we didn't get any further. So I have an idea maybe who may have been in the garage, but a silver gray sedan, there's a lot of people that, it's not an uncommon car. So from there, we just know that she was literally, she disappears.
I would assume that they know that. Do they know what kind of car Ryan has and knows that that's not his?
It's my understanding, yes. And I know what kind of car Ryan has, and I was a little suspect in the beginning. However, again, I have done everything I can to rule this man out. I wanted to have that conversation to kind of wrap it up in a little bow, see if I can get any more details from him. However, I have even gone back. He's not going to like me, but on Ryan, I have gone through the trenches. I found out what car he owned before, what car he owned during, and what car he owned after. I actually found reports that showed when it was for sale. And I was able to see the back of the trunk. I was able to see that they had pictures of the interior. I have had people at car dealerships who know what they're talking about and know about stains from detailing, because we found some suspicious stains. We had those looked at. We have had a lot of work put into that specific vehicle that we thought, because that vehicle was sold shortly after she disappeared. So we were very curious.
Didn't he move out shortly after she disappeared?
Yeah,
like days.
About a week. Yes.
Really
so about a week after he also left. And what's crazy is that I at the time I knew where he moved, and he moved right around the corner. So I don't know if he was he had just moved there too. And it's my understanding their leases there. I looked up their leases. Their leases are for 6 to 12 months. So so it's I don't know exactly what happened there. Yeah, unless they had some sort of special arrangement where it was month to month, and that was just coincidence. But
and
he
who
literally
can pay
moved
month to month.
No kidding. And it's always at least a few $100s more. And then you still have to give them a notice.
Yeah.
You still have to give them a notice. That's another thing. You have to give them a notice. Yeah.
Yeah. So
do they know how she ever met him or came to know him?
Ryan?
Yes.
I think if I remember correctly, she met him through mutual friends. He was quite a bit older than her. And so they met through mutual friends. So I don't know if that had something to do with I wanted to clarify that with him too, and see if they had any other mutual friends that I could start to look into and ask about this Matt guy. But that's my understanding, is that they met through there. I don't know if, they met through mutual friends at, an exotic dance club,
Well,
or
see, that's
if it was.
where I was going with this.
Yeah.
I do think, I really do think when you throw that part of the story into this, like, again, you're going to have a single mother who's like trying to support a kid and was in the service, kind of has this look that people will feel for. And I'm not saying that she's a bad person, but
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I think if you actually add in the exotic dancing, that could explain maybe her own drug use, which is why it seems like it might have gotten progressively worse, because maybe she was just doing more bumps or whatever throughout the time, and could start like wondering, like, is that how she knows Ryan, or is that why she has this Jeep? Like, I hate to say it, but that one little thing could really, I know people don't want to look at stuff like that because it makes the victim look horrible. No, they're just a human being like everybody else.
I'm about to drop a bomb for you that no one knows. So she was not known to do drugs. I don't, when I said that, like, whatever she was doing, I know she was drinking pretty heavily while she was at the strip clubs, and she had met this guy who actually got her a job, and that ended up being her manager, and that's how she got into this dancing. Well, anytime she ever needed any help, if she was ever too drunk, she was fearful, anything, she would call this guy. And I have spoken to this guy, and I have been given stories. She did not do anything that we're aware of. However, shortly before she disappeared, within the few months leading up to her disappearance, she was at the club, and she asked another manager, not her friend manager, she asked another manager about getting some ice. And she said it wasn't for her, and that it was for someone else. In this same scenario and situation, at this very same time or within minutes, she is terrified of what is happening. I think because they said no. And this guy that she brought with her ends up getting kicked out. He's very big, has a lot of tattoos. I mean, big old guy. And I was told he was former SWAT. He ends up getting kicked out of this strip club, and they lock the doors and lock it down, and he's trying to pound them down. And this is right after she asked to buy that. And it was allegedly for him. So it's a possibility that she got into that for someone else and was trying to just, like, they manipulated her. Like, you're in this, you're in this line of business, and I know what comes with that. You have to have connections. Or there's a number of things,
Or they held her kid over her head.
Exactly. There's a number of different reasons why she might do such a thing. But that does come into play, especially when you start talking about an ex-SWAT member. One, why are you ex-SWAT? Now, I get it a lot. Why are you no longer a licensed PI? I chose that route for my own medical reasons. You can't be a badass when you're kind of half broken with your back and stuff. You can't go out there, trying to do some of these things. And I have a little boy. And so I can understand why some people would be ex-SWAT, ex-investigators, ex-whatever, former doctors, things like that. Normally you stay in that field for your whole entire life. You just try to advance. And so I don't know what happened for this person to be ex-SWAT, and I don't know how she met him, but I knew that she knew some people. She has ties to Fort Hood. And I know if you guys know anything about Fort Hood, yes, she had ties to Fort Hood.
The amount of women that have gone dead in Fort Hood is alarming.
Yeah. And she knew people that were in active duty at Fort Hood. I can't prove that she had been there recently. However, that is a tie. She had a lot of ties to people that in big places, and it makes you wonder. She had ties to attorneys, from the attorneys that she worked with. I don't know if that's maybe how she started meeting some of these other people, like ex-SWAT. I don't know if they were current SWAT at the time, but this member is, this person that she knew was allegedly the one that wanted her to buy these drugs for him. And then he lashes out, and she's afraid. And her friend manager was completely caught off guard. He's like, what's going on, Prisma? And what he tells me is that he's like, I had to kick this guy out, and she was freaking out. And then when I kick him out, we've closed. They either closed the door to not let him in, or it was at closing time, and she knew that was the best time to try and go get what he wanted. And at that point, they locked him out, and he's literally trying to bust the door down. So it's like there's a lot of different people that are involved in this case that may have ties to people that we don't know. So I've tried to connect Ryan or others to.
Which is interesting, because if they say no, just leave. You got kicked out, just go on your own.
Exactly.
Why, I guess they don't have any or whatever. But the fact that he was trying to force his way back in or demand his way back in is very. I had a quick question. When you said that she went to the dumpster or behind dumpster, did they check to see if there was any vomit or anything? Urine or anything?
I do not know. Actually, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I know that the bartenders said that she went back there. We all just assumed it was to hide.
Okay.
I don't think that they ever did that. That's a good question. I'll actually ask.
That just
I'll
sounds
ask
cool.
law
It's like
enforcement.
you probably would look like you're crouching to hide, but you could be crouching to piss. I mean,
that's exactly it too.
Right here. Maybe she didn't want to get off the phone or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know at that time, I don't think she was on the phone. She had just gotten off the phone, but she was on the phone for 52 minutes. Okay. So I have a very weak bladder. And when you introduce alcohol to it, it's like, I wouldn't have been able to last that conversation.
No, that's what I was like thinking.
And
if you've been drinking, you already went once, it's game over now.
Yeah. And if they kicked her out and they're not going to let her back in, not even to use the bathroom. I mean, I don't know.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Because we haven't been able to completely confirm whether or not after she went to the dumpster, because she had been kicked out and they threatened to call the cops, if she even came back in. I mean, her tab had to be paid at some point, or that would have been a part of this whole scenario as well.
Oh, yeah.
So another thing I want to bring just
real quick, and I don't mean to like harp on it. It's just
sure.
What I was getting at before is I think like it could be a waste of time, but it just seems to be like a lot of like unknown connections, and I do think that maybe if there was like a little bit more looked into her other job, you might find some, because like I kind of what you were getting at a little bit earlier before, something I had even said to Lisa yesterday. I said it doesn't even have to be anything major. It doesn't mean that like a bag of cocaine is going to equal to people like mercenaries, but when you think about it, I'm just gonna let's be honest. When it comes to these types of places, regardless if management and owners even know, I could almost guarantee you, I'm just going to be honest, probably at least 70% of those places have something illegal going on in there besides stripping, regardless if it's shitty fucking coke or prostitution. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be something going on. You're going to meet people that are not amongst the regular community that might be into other weird stuff or illegal things. That could be a hub for so many different unusual contacts.
Absolutely. And we haven't ruled out the fact that she met someone there and that they were just obsessed with her. I always go back to the burner phone calling her right before this road rage incident, and a burner phone. It was a Sanyo burner phone. Y'all Google Sanyo cell phone. This shit is old. It's old, dude. It is old.
That almost reminds me of the burners from Mexico.
It's crazy. Oh, let me tell you something. After she goes missing, speaking of Mexico, she goes missing, and about a year or so after she goes missing, all these calls start coming into Dan from Mexico. They're freaking him out because it was over and over and over and over. And it was different numbers like each time. Like some numbers will call a couple times, but then it was another number. And they were all saying the same thing, but they were speaking Spanish and they were all freaked out. They literally had him. He called me and he's like, can you search numbers from Mexico? It has a Mexico area code. I don't know where it's from. We found out what area it was coming from. But unfortunately, with databases that we use and have access to in general, it's United States. Unless someone has lived in the United States, went to Mexico, came back, it may be like a note under there. Like they lived in Veracruz, Mexico, like where she was born.
And they're burners. That's what they get them for, that it's not going to be traced.
Yeah. Exactly. So even if we could trace it back, it's likely to be a burner anyway. And that's always been interesting because she has a connection to Mexico. She was born there. A lot of the people that she had dated, it wasn't just Ryan, she had dated a few other men in between. They had connections to Mexico. One of them actually had a connection to the cartel. It gets deep. Y'all need to put on your boots, because it really does. Like there's no amount of anything. Like, we have looked into connection after connection. We have looked into at the places that she was dancing. We have looked into their security teams because they have private security that they pull in, and a lot of these people have Instagram pages for their security. And they'll tag themselves at these clubs. And so we have gone to that. We have gone to a lot of other buy here, pay here car lots. We have checked out literally everything, any connection that we can come up with between any single person that we have and any single location. We have looked. I have a number of people that I have been looking into that have legitimate jobs. They have legitimate incomes, but they are doing so much on the side that it wouldn't surprise me if they were truly involved. And I think this ultimately is a lot deeper than anybody thinks, because we've thrown around the idea, and these are things that it's been 5 years. What do we have to lose at this point? So I'm going to tell you, which I don't tell anybody, but we have thought that maybe she was a CI.
I have thought this myself.
And we can't get any confirmation of that. We've asked, and they won't tell us.
Wasn't there like, once she was reported missing, and then she was reported missing by the babysitter, correct?
Yes.
Didn't even call the family. She just called it in. And then within hours, if not just 2 hours, FBI shows up.
FBI was there very quickly after. So there are 2 reports. There's the one report that was made just a couple hours. So Prisma was supposed to be there to get her son at like 7 or 7:15, which she ends up over at the Olympus at Ross Apartments right before 6 o'clock. To get back to Mesquite, we're talking another 20 to 30 minutes, depending on traffic and the weather. Could have even been more. So that plays into it. However, she was supposed to go pick up her son, and she didn't. So the babysitter that she had this 53-minute conversation with ends up reporting her missing 2 hours after she was supposed to be there. So about 9:15, Mesquite gets a call about her. Since the initial call came through Mesquite, they came out, they took the report. It's rather interesting because in that report, the babysitter calls. However, when they get there, they say that the babysitter only speaks Spanish and that the person they needed to talk to was the boyfriend. So they talk to the boyfriend the whole time, and he's the one who gives the initial missing persons report. Just so you know. I've requested the body cam from that situation, and I have requested all the reporting from that situation, and they won't give it to me. So the fact that they had that long conversation, the fact that there's 2 different reportings, and the babysitter also, she was very she would talk about anything to the family in the beginning. First few weeks, first few months, she was easy to be reached. She was willing to help them. After that, nothing. She has just been straight up MIA the whole time. There have been some kind of rumors flying around that maybe the babysitter knew Prisma's mother. I cannot 100% confirm this. I don't ever want to put anybody in a situation like that, but it makes me wonder, if you knew her mom, why didn't you call her mom before you reported her missing? Like, why would you just assume she's missing? So, exactly. And so it makes me wonder. And I know that in this crime, it's not one person. Like, we've got a handful of people that we're working with right now, and they're all tied in a very specific way. And I think the reason that they knew wherever Prisma was after that hour that she left E-Bar and got back to the apartment complex. And this apartment complex is in Dallas, and so is E-Bar. So there's a whole situation going on with, we have Dallas, and that's the location, but then we have Mesquite not having jurisdiction in Dallas. And then the FBI shows up, and the FBI doesn't show up unless they know there's a crime. And then the FBI leaves as quickly as they got there. So it's a total disaster on how, like, there was even another team. It was like the Texas Rangers came out. Like, they had a bunch of people out there searching. They looked through everything. And that searching started not after that 9 p.m. call. They just took the initial report. The searching actually happened after there was the call made that her Jeep, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was the Jeep that was blocking that little street. And so they called from Dallas. Then they said, wait a minute, that's registered to Prisma Reyes. Holy crap, she's missing in Mesquite. So then they tied all of those together along with the road rage incident. The Dallas police even tried to follow up pertaining to that incident, because that's a felony. Like, you can't just pull a weapon on somebody. That's felonious assault. So they were going to charge her if they could. And they tried to contact these 3 women that were in the car that was confronted at this road rage incident. And they only got a hold of one of the girls one time from the reports that I got. And basically what happened is they talked to her after. She didn't answer the first few times, even after messages were left, wouldn't call back, nothing. Finally answers, and they explained to her, hey, this girl's actually gone missing. And, we were just trying to connect, see if there's anything that we can, anything you remember. And they dropped the whole case of the felonious assault because she was missing, and they really needed to work on finding her. And they, in my opinion, they didn't want her to know if she was out there alive. They didn't want her to know that there was a felony warrant out for her because she wouldn't come back. However, we know she didn't just leave willingly. So there's a few things that kind of play into how she went missing, where she went missing, who's looking into it, and jurisdiction definitely plays into it, because like I said, Mesquite can't just go, like, the places that she was last seen at are in Dallas, and Mesquite cannot just go over there all willy-nilly and do what they would normally do in Mesquite.
Jurisdictions, yeah.
Exactly. So they kind of have to team up with or have prior approval, have some sort of contract that, hey, we're here, we'll back you up. Normally, if it's in a different jurisdiction, in cases, they actually would call Dallas PD and say, will you come and join us here because this is your jurisdiction? And in court, we're going to need both sides. And so, because like Mesquite is familiar with Mesquite, Dallas is familiar with Dallas. And depending on where you get charged and what happens, there's a lot of intangibles. And so I know that Dallas was definitely a part of this investigation. And some of the information I got from Dallas and some I have gotten from Mesquite. But we do know a few things that are very weird. The whole babysitter situation and how she ties into it a couple times. Right. And then I also know that the business 123 Tex Auto that Prisma worked at never called her to see if she was coming back to work. Oh, wow. So yeah, they never reached out to her. So it makes you wonder if she had a conversation and she's just like, screw this, I'm out. Like, I'm never coming back. And she told them, or if they just knew she wasn't coming back or didn't care. But anytime I've ever heard of someone not coming back, it comes to a liability at some point. It's like, where was she? Who's going to be held accountable for when she left and where she's coming back? Like, she's at your job. She clocks in, she clocks out. What happened? And we don't have any of that. We literally have no idea what she told them versus what her intention was. But they never called her phone. I can tell you that.
That's interesting.
Which is very strange. Very strange. It makes me wonder maybe who worked there. We can't, since we're not law enforcement and since I don't have my license in Texas, I can't do the things that I would normally do. But, we have no idea other than who owns that business and the history of that business. We don't know who worked there. We don't know anything about any of those people. So I can't tie them into anything else because I don't know who they are. They're literally a question mark to me. So it's kind of made me wonder from there if something has tied into it. That's what's made us look into all of these other things. We've looked into any kind of business that you can have that you could be doing something else, like trafficking, laundering money, or just, drugs, anything. Like, we looked into trafficking people, money, drugs, all of it. And we come back to the same group of people that do the same type of things that they might be able to get away with it. So we do have, some people that we were very strongly looking into. However, that's just us and our team. And with everything that pertains into it, we only have what we could obtain. This is our own research. These are our own interviews. This is our own FOIA requests that we've put in to obtain this information with very little to almost no help from Dallas and Mesquite at all. And so we don't know what we don't know. And we know what we know based on our research and what we've eliminated and who we've talked to, but we simply don't know what these other people know that they won't give us. And my plea, honestly, and I wish that more people would join in that, is to try to get Mesquite to release something else, because They haven't released anything in 2 years. Prisma's case is inactive. I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but her case has been classified. I have it in writing. Her case is inactive. I have asked them numerous times to provide me with information. If you are not going to actively work her case and you are not going to use your resources to find her, will you help me help you? Like, give me something that it doesn't need to be like the thing. It just help me help you. Like, give me something. I have said I'll sign any contract you come up with. Like, I know that's not how it works, but I come up with anything. I'm like, look, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I asked if I could meet them when I was in Dallas. I went to Dallas for 24 hours. I met Dan. I met her brother, Rudy. I met her sister-in-law, her brother has since been married since she's been gone. And her sister has had twins since she's been gone. She's missed a lot. And I didn't get to meet her sister Esmeralda because she was with the twins, but I met her brother, Rudy. And I met his fiance, or it was his fiance at the time she went missing, I think, or his girlfriend. Prisma had even lived with him at one point in time, or they lived with her. And I've met her. She's wonderful. They're married now. They're like, look, we will vouch for her. Like, they're like, give us the information, And I don't know if they don't want to give it to them because they know that they're going to give it to me or what. I mean,
it's a bigger investigation.
Exactly. And that's where we go back to okay, so is it the CI way that we're going here? Was she some sort of informant for someone and something just got too involved? And seriously, this could be one of the best scenarios is if they're hiding her. Like, but I just don't think after 5 years, like in my experience, if they're going to do that, like, and it's the shady government stuff. And I don't know if you guys ever used to watch, what was that show? It was The Fixer. She was an attorney. She called herself The Fixer. It was on the same channel and the same as How to Make a Murder. How
to Get Away with Murder.
Yes, it was that. And then there was another show on, and I can't remember. It was Olivia something, and she was the attorney, and she was the fixer.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. She would basically, with the president, they got him elected and then try to cover up everything after that. I can't remember the name, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not too big into conspiracies. In my honest opinion, a conspiracy is just another way things could have played out with people behind it. I mean, a conspiracy, you just have to have 2 or more people. And when you start looking into things and you get deep into those things, it makes me wonder if she knew a fixer or if something happened where they were trying to get her out of a situation where they thought that she was in trouble and in danger. And because normally when you have a CI that's in an active investigation, they are trying to follow up with what you're doing. One, to make sure you're not in any kind of crap you're not supposed to be in, that you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. And not trying to win one over on them, but also because they need their own evidence. There's a chain of custody for evidence, all the things. And so it makes us wonder why. Like, is it a bigger trafficking ring? Is it because I already know there's multiple people involved. And trafficking, you have people that watch people, follow people, keep tabs on people, report back to people, hide people. And there were a couple years after she went missing, there was a very specific house in Dallas that was busted that they were trafficking people in. And it's like every time something comes up where someone is found, like there's a skull that was found in San Antonio a couple years ago. Yes. We have been in contact with the coroner. We didn't know much about it until they ended up getting some DNA from this skull, and they put it into a system that told them what she might look like. So they did a sketch, and my death investigator partner has talked directly to the coroner, and the coroner said this is one of the best leads that they had. However, this was back in like September or October, and we've been in contact with the Dallas. They know, or Mesquite knows about this. Dustin Barrett, the detective, he told me in an email that he knew about it and had been in contact with them. At the time, we knew that they were looking for a skull, they were trying to match dental records with the skull that they had obtained, which was found in a ditch on the side of the road on a highway in San Antonio. Since the body the remains had been unidentified for so long, that's what made them go back and do some more of the techniques that they have that are newer techniques that allow you to take DNA and come up with what they might look like. And to be honest, it looks very much like Prisma. I've been in contact with her family. We've been trying to push this along. Even before this podcast, I was trying to follow up with both sides, the coroner and the detective. Didn't get very far. So it's still a big question mark. You know, they're still trying to find out who that may be. And people that we know that are tied to her are tied to San Antonio. So every time we get any kind of information like that, or if there's a lull kind of in what we're doing, we go through NamUs. We try to find out if there are any kind of unidentified remains or missing persons reports or anything that can, you know, coincide or have any kind of similarities to hers. And I had even at one point been in contact. There have been a few girls that went missing in Deep Ellum, which is within walking distance of the Olympus at Ross Apartments. And there were 2 girls that went missing in that area. And I think, unfortunately, they've both been found deceased. I had talked to one of the girls' families. I talked to her mom directly for a little while, and we were cross-referencing anyone that we had looked into. We were literally spitting out names at each other. Like, have you heard of blah, blah, blah? We were sending lists of names. Not a single person would cross-reference. And we're like, shit. So then we had to move on. So then I went to the next one. And every single time there is something that is very similar anywhere around this area or in the bordering states, we immediately go back through all of our files. We start searching names. We start searching addresses, everything. Like, there was someone who we got a message recently to the Facebook group, and they're like, hey, someone went missing from that apartment complex just recently. Can you look into this? Well, that wasn't the case. They went missing from around that apartment complex, but we don't know if that will match anything that we're working with. And if this is something bigger, we're going to find a similarity somewhere. So there's just so much into it and so much detail. Like, her disappearing is this much of like the whole situation as a whole.
You know, Kaylee, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of law she was working with? She was a paralegal, and you said she worked in various firms. Do you know what type of law specifically?
At the time, I know with one attorney, I think she was doing more real estate things. There wasn't, so one of the attorneys that she worked for does a plethora of things. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he kind of like dabbled in the civil stuff and that's in the custody stuff. And that's why he helped the mom, or if he just, but I know that he came specifically from real estate. This guy very specifically, like, he actually ended up suing a township or a town or something over some property. And then he ended up doing this all by himself from my research, and realized he was a good attorney. So he's like, hell, I'm gonna do this myself. So he became an attorney, and this is someone that she worked for. And there's a lot of people that we have that we can kind of tie to some real estate that know her, and we can tie to some land. But I mean, there's so many people that we can tie to the exact same things. And I think she worked on real estate primarily because that was his field before he came into being an attorney.
I was just thinking along the lines of, if it happened to be related to criminal law, and it was kind of sketchy why she was no longer working there, they kind of gave it away but didn't explain. I just was trying to make a connection. It's just, throwing out.
I'll tell you,
a line out. That's all.
Yeah, no, because I was kind of vague, and I don't want to be that way. Like, if I don't have to be, but so I have talked to an employee at the place where it was said that Prisma got fired, and I was told why. And honestly, I think it was something more personal than professional, if you ask me. So it's just something that I don't want to put a target on this man's back, because again, I don't, we don't have anything to confirm, and it has been put out there what law firm she worked for. And so I don't ever want to be one to start any trouble. You know how people are these days. They're like, oh my gosh, this is a name. We're going to go harass you. You know what I mean? The last thing I want to do is do that to an attorney. But I do know that she worked on different things. And I think it wasn't a professional reason why she departed. I think she actually left, but they like to classify it as she got fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You know, the thing
I would love to go more into it. It just wouldn't make the situation
that's fine. I just
better.
thought if there was some connection with law or criminality or something like, or even immigration or something, where maybe she would have been looking around for something, and maybe she suddenly left that firm because she was going to, to go undercover for something related to that. I'm just
actually
fishing,
thank you for bringing that up, because another person she talked to at the bar, she called an out-of-state attorney from Colorado. However, we have now been told that it is not a professional call. It was a personal call. So not the reason we thought. We were told that maybe she was calling because she was trying to help someone with their immigration status, or she knew someone that was in trouble with like a DUI or something. And this person that she called, we've looked into, the company, there's a few people that work there. They do a number of different things. They do DUIs. They also deal with any kind of like immigration stuff and a number of different things criminal wise. And so we had thought maybe Ryan was upset with her because she was calling to try and get someone else, like another guy, out of trouble. And then we come to find out that it was an actual personal relationship why she called this attorney's office. It wasn't a direct number to a person. It was literally the number to an attorney's office.
like a business number. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we've always kind of wondered, like, she has a lot of ties. And I know that the attorney, the one that you had mentioned prior, Lisa, that attorney they work with a lot of other attorneys so that if they can't handle that type of business or situation, they'll actually, refer it to someone that they know. And they have a little group of people that they will do that with. And so it made me wonder, like, why was she reaching outside of the state completely to Colorado when she's in Texas? And so
the reason I bring this up is because I believe in November, and I'm sorry, there's somebody cutting the grass if it's really loud, that there was a case in November the year before where a paralegal was also claiming to be stalked or followed and ends up getting abducted in Houston. And so it seems weird that another paralegal who looks very similar, has the 5'2" stature, 115 pounds, Hispanic, gets taken, and she had just dropped off her daughter at a babysitter.
That is crazy.
And,
okay.
And it seems so similar. And it's almost like, I wonder, in my head, I was like, I wonder if they're taking these paralegals because they're wanting information on these attorneys or the cases or something.
Yeah. Yep.
No, yeah, there was something I was going to say before. Like, I was going to ask you, and I'm not harping on this job again, because I even thought that the paralegal thing, exactly what Lisa said, I had wondered, who knows, but how long was she even working as like a dancer?
So she went.
That'd have been like something where she was posing as a dancer and trying to find drug connections.
She was a dancer for a couple years. I know this through the person who actually introduced her to it, because they were her manager. They became her friend, and she was still, even after she left his specific club, she was still friends with him. And that's who she went back to when the SWAT guy was there. So she had certain people that she would call for help, and they were very familiar with what her situation was. And my understanding was about 2 years before she went missing is when the dancing started. But she had been dancing at a few different clubs. It wasn't just one. Like, there was Chico's, and there were 2 other ones that I know very specifically that she had been at. It's not on the top of my head right now, but I think honestly, there's a lot of people that don't want to discuss it because they think that it'll make her seem less than, and it'll make, like, her disappearance it's not as important to find her because she was up to other things. And honestly, in my opinion, I think that now bringing it up is more important than ever, because it could be tied to something like this. And maybe there's another girl who experienced something very similar, or at this point, say one male did it, or they had an involvement with it. There's no way after 5 whole years that they're not going to use that as a threat towards somebody else. Like, have you ever heard of this girl? You want to go missing like her? Like, they usually do that. They're trying to scare the crap out of people and use it. There's not, I know, and I've always said that there's someone out there that knows something, whether they knew it then or they know it now. And that's the missing piece. That's absolutely the missing piece. And the law enforcement, they know it as well. And that's why they know so much more than they're ever willing to give anyone, especially in this case, because they are not willing to put out any other information. Not a single thing. So they're waiting. And to me, I'm like, if you're not going to talk about her, someone's got to talk about her, or everyone's just going to forget about her, and you're never going to get that peace. So to continue to talk about where she worked, what she did, I hope it literally jogs someone's memory. Maybe they were drugged out before, but now they're back to, you know, the normal selves, and they want to talk about it. They're willing to talk about it. So I can appreciate that you actually bring it up, because it's very possible.
Yeah,
Has a reward been posted by any chance for her?
There is
information or finding her, or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's been up to $2,000. Okay. Unfortunately, with rewards, I mean, her family has put this together, and unfortunately, with rewards, unless it's like $100,000, $1 million, in cases like this, people are like, I'm not losing my life. I'm not putting my family at risk, you know?
Right.
So it's got to come from the right person. And honestly, I think the police need to make a plea for someone to come forward, and that they'll help them. Like, we don't want you to go disappear like she did, and we know that you're afraid. We will help you. There's a lot of people that don't understand that. Like, if you're out there and you're listening and you do interview with Dustin Barrett or someone, like, it's very likely that I promise you, he'll help you. Like, he's not my favorite person in the world. I've got all kinds of nicknames for it, and he knows it. I just don't, like, I can't not credit the man for his job. And if there's something out there that, you know, like, if the police have the additional information, they're waiting on you. So they can have a judge sign a warrant, and they can have them sign a search warrant, an arrest warrant. I mean, just like that. And if you have that information, it's very likely they'd be willing to keep you safe and at their station until they wrap up everybody that's involved and they're in jail. Like, there are things that they can do to help you and protect you if you are out there and you are scared. You can also, I don't care who in the hell did it at this point. I need to find her for answers for her son. So if you know where she is, you can call Mesquite PD. You can call Crime Stoppers in Dallas. You can drop us an anonymous email, like create a throwaway email and send it. We will have that area searched. Like, if you know or are a part of it, I don't care if you get found. To be honest, at this point, 5 years later, her son, this makes me cry almost every time. Her son has created a YouTube channel for himself and his family so he can talk about his mom. Like, how do you not give this boy answers? Like, I just, you know, so I don't care. In the beginning, I was like, we're going to get him. I don't care who it is. We're going to get him. Now I'm like, we're going to find her to keep him whole. He's not whole. He has a very, very, very big hole in his heart. And he loved his mom. He adored her. And if I can just give him answers to tell him that, like, his mom is in a better place, or that, like, we're going to bring her home if she is out there, like, just something. Like, if she's alive, for the longest time, I felt like she was alive. I really did. And it's possible that she was. Unfortunately, where we are at this point and what I know now, there's no way she's alive. And I hate to say that. But if she is, and you know where she is, let us know the location. Like, you don't ever have to even contact the police. We just need to know where she is. And I have had calls at 1, 2, 3 in the morning from someone I know, like, I can confirm they know way more about this situation. They know more about the car. He knows who he is. They have called me a number of times in the middle of the night trying to almost taunt me at this point. And stop taunting and do something. Like, the fact that people want to do this is unbelievable to me, because the crap that you could be telling me, he told me specifically, very specifically, he had never gone to the cops. And he told me that he wanted to talk to me to find out he was feeling like he should go to the cops. And he wanted to know that his feeling to go to the cops was the right feeling because of everything else that leads to this. And I'm like, quit doing this to me. I don't care. He asked me, do you just want to find her, or do you want to, help put these people away? I said, I just want to find her. I don't care. And I was hoping that would be the time where someone would come and say, okay, I'm going to call Dustin and I'm going to give him the information that he needs. Or I'm going to call Crime Stoppers. Like, I gave him that information. I haven't heard from him in a few years. And I even reached out to him a few months ago. And I said, hey, you ready to talk yet? Like, I know there's people out there very specifically that have information. And I wish they weren't afraid. I know this guy's afraid. I wish that they would just give it. Like at this point, I don't even know. I know it's more of a bigger situation. And I know that obviously law enforcement, they want to get their guys. But I know in this case also, they just want answers. They want to find her, especially if it's a part of something bigger, because they have more to figure out. And there's more than just Prisma. So it's a shit show. I'll be honest. And it's just, I keep going because of that little boy, no matter what. If I didn't have a family that I was, obviously cherish and adore, I would put more information out there. I'd put these people on blast. It's not going to do anything. I mean, other than get other people hurt. And so I know that there are people out there that know the people I'm talking about. And I'm hoping by the more that I kind of put out there without giving too many specifics. However, like you throwing out there that she was an exotic dancer, damn it. She was an exotic dancer. It doesn't make her any less than, period. It makes it more beneficial to know this, to know maybe where she was, where she hung out, who she knew, what she was doing, because those things aren't things you're going to tell your family. You know,
just want to follow the trail and be biased to the situation and just look at everything. That's
exactly.
I mean, that's what it. Honestly, that's what a good cop or detective should be doing.
You do. The biggest thing you can ever do and the most important thing you can ever do is list out any potential suspect and any potential possibility of what happened to her. And as soon as you can 100% prove that something did not happen or someone did not do something, you cross them off. And then what you have left is what you can work on, because the rest doesn't fit the puzzle. So we have narrowed our list. We started here. We're now down to about here. But that list of even this is a lot of people. And we know that many of them are tied to the people we're looking for. And they're all kind of intertwined in one way, shape, or form, through business, through extracurricular activities, if you want to say, through friendships. I know some of them are tied through family. So it's just, and I know you wouldn't want to turn on family or family friends. So go to Crime Stoppers, go put this out there. That's the biggest thing that we could ever ask for right now, is just that anonymous tip. Because they have to. If anything's dropped at Crime Stoppers, they have to go investigate that. That is the biggest thing that I could ask anyone to do right now. Consider everything that you've heard in this podcast. Don't let anything go by the wayside. And what even if you don't know it's a fact, but you've heard it or it's been told to you, and it seems like it could be something, it's likely something that the police have not heard. And I just urge anyone with that information, or like Lisa, when you had a similar instance that you brought up of the Houston, like there was another girl who went missing in February of 2019. Her ex ended up doing it. I can't remember her name. But she was found. They were looking for her in White Rock Lake, which they said Prisma went towards White Rock Lake. 2 months later, like literally, I think this girl went missing on February 19th of 19. Like we're almost 2 months to the day. Well, I found out, I start looking into that case and looking into that suspect. Well, the suspect offed himself because he knew he was, a suspect in this other missing person. And they found her in like some little like river or dam or something off of the White Rock Lake. I have even been given a tip. I was on the phone with one of the family members, I'll keep it at that, and they received a phone call while I was on the phone with them. We were doing some translating because I don't speak Spanish, even though I can try. I don't. And so we're on speakerphone. So I hear what's happening. And this family member puts this person on speakerphone. And they said, I need to tell you something. And we're like, what? We're all just kind of like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? And it's so ironic that it happens when this is the only phone call I've ever had with this family member. Okay. And this other person calls and they said, I need to tell you something. My fiance is currently in jail and is having some sort of withdrawal episode or some sort of out of this world experience. And they say Prisma is in the Trinity River. So I'm calling you to tell you that Prisma might be in the Trinity River and that he was literally freaking out that she was in the Trinity River. So damn that Trinity River. I have looked that thing up and down. Alligators are just like, if she was, the stream is so quick, and the potential for wildlife to get her. I mean, someone knew that if they did that they likely would never find her. And that's something that, the cartel, they like to do. They like to end their life, but then they like to erase everything that was ever there. And if they can,
They don't give
you
the
know,
body.
exactly.
So
So
it's
if they can get rid of it,
disposable, not to sound like disgusting about it, but if really think about it.
yeah, I mean,
tossing someone down there, obviously it's not gonna, it's gonna get pieces left. It's like, you know, nobody's gonna find them.
Yeah.
The girl that they found in the river that you just said,
yeah.
Did they do an autopsy on her? And if they did, were their organs missing?
Oh crap, I don't know. So I had looked into this a few years ago, and then I was looking back into it this week actually, and I was like, because it came up on something I was watching, and I do a whole lot of like anytime I'm cleaning, doing anything, I listen to stuff, and you never know what you could listen to that could, especially with these cases. And so a lot of similar cases to hers are what I watch on like my YouTube history and stuff. So the next video will come up that's very similar. And that's how it jogged my memory. And I know his last name was Hernandez. His was. Let me see. Hold on one second. Because I was literally just looking at it. I'll give you her name. I do not know. I know that they found him before they found her. And he did his own doings. And then they found her shortly after. And he was a suspect. And he knew that he was going to be, they had a warrant out for a felonious for a felony, and they were going to arrest him, and he knew that. And so I don't even remember how he ended up killing himself. Hold on one second. It was from Dallas though, and going towards White Rock Lake. And they were very adamant in the very beginning when she disappeared that she was going towards White Rock Lake. Now, White Rock Lake is like dead ahead on I-30, and she turned around near a school, kind of like right before you get there. But then to the right is where she lived, and to the left is where she worked. So if you're going on I-30, or the way that I think she went is actually closer to her house on the right, then, and on the, well, it'd be, I don't know if it's north or south. I'm totally confused on the direction, but when I'm looking at it, she would be going to the right, and like she'd have to completely turn around, and then her work would be over here. So at one point we thought maybe she was trying to go back to work, but it was at 6 o'clock. What's she going back to work for at 6 o'clock when she left at like 11 or 12 or something? So it didn't make any sense for that to happen either. But I literally just looked him up. Let's see. Hold on, her name.
Yeah, I-30 runs east to west, and it's I-35. I think it also bisects. Dallas.
Yes, you're right. I get those confused because right at Dallas is where I-35 intersects, and I think it's where they have those tolls and like the bridges and stuff, don't they? Yeah.
Yes, so they do. Yes.
That's where as soon as I got to Dallas, I was going on the highway, and I was like, holy crap, I've done videos about this area. Like, because I did not realize how close I-35 to I-30 was. I had been looking through those cameras in the tunnels trying to see, and the toll cameras. I'm like, maybe I can find one of these vehicles of interest of mine going through one of these toll cameras or one of these traffic cameras. I cannot tell you how many I searched through YouTube through the day, like the whole entire day that she went missing. I did all kinds of searches to try and find anyone in Dallas taking any kind of video of anything. Like, we have searched everything, and I couldn't find any kind of the vehicles I was looking for. Some of them were way far away. You couldn't see anything other than like a little ant walking. But I mean, we've reverse searched everything. We've done I'm OSINT certified. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's open source intelligence. So basically you're using social media and things that are out there for the public that you're coming through to come up with an intelligence source or a definitive answer. You're looking for something. It's a different way of researching and combing through information. And it's really with the public information that's been given. And they actually, an interesting fact, through OSINT, they actually will compile data on terrorism threats and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So I went through all of my open source intelligence resources and tried to cross-reference everything. Like I literally went through everything to try and find a different name she would have used, to try and find, she had 3 different Facebook profiles and I think 3 different Instagram profiles. I mean, we have messaged her on all of these to see if it ever goes on red, to see if she ever comes on. Like there's I mean, I'm sure there's stones that we haven't turned, but in our eyes, there's no stone that has yet to be unturned that we have come across at this point. And so we try to cross-reference any of them, and we've actually compiled a list to see if any of these disappearances and deaths will correlate with hers. And they all have a different list of suspects, unfortunately. But we're trying. And I've heard the Trinity River, there was a body that was found in, I think it was another dam or something off the Trinity River, because my understanding is one of the only ways that you're actually going to be found in the Trinity River is if you get stuck, like on a branch or something.
Yes.
Like other than that,
it's raging.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And when I was there, I didn't get to go to the Trinity River. That was one thing I wanted to do. However, I had someone who was liking all of my Instagram posts the day before I went to Dallas, who I never told anyone I was going to Dallas. And it was someone I was looking into. So I knew, I literally had I had talked to a few people that are familiar with the case, and we set a 24-hour period for me to be in Dallas so that I could make, like, I went in disguise. I didn't even go as myself because I had a black wig. I had a hat. I'm telling you, these people knew who the heck I was, and I wasn't going to go there and they were going to know who I was. I was leaving Dallas. Okay. I wasn't not coming home. My death investigator partner, Sam, she, as soon as she knew my flight landed, she's like, "You better be home." I'm like, "I swear I'm home." It's just, it's a disaster. And that's why I think that there are so many people that are afraid to talk, even though they know something, because they know how deep this crap gets and they don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be the next person that goes missing. However, like I've said, there's so many ways to go around it, but we end up at the same place, where the criminals have done their job. They've intimidated everybody and they're getting what they want. So even if she was disposed in the Trinity River, just like we were told, unless she gets caught up on this big old like tree that's, overgrown, and she just so happens it's hanging in the water and it catches her clothes, even then it'll likely rip her shirt and she'll keep going. She would literally have to get hung up on like a big old stump, and it would have to keep her there. And then even there, decomp is different when you're in water. And so you have to think about different things like, okay, what scenario would someone put someone in the water, and where would they drop her to actually get her down that river versus getting her hung up? And then that water, even because it's constantly running and flowing, it's my understanding, even though Texas is really, really hot, that water is a lot less warm than you would think. Yeah, it's cooler than, yes.
Because of the way it originates deep into the ground. And then it empties into the Gulf.
And it is the longest river in Texas, isn't it? It goes almost through the whole entire state.
I don't know. I think Colorado might be, but all of the rivers empty into the Gulf.
Yeah. And it's, so if she made it all the way down by then, I mean, it's long. I mean, it's hundreds of miles long.
Yes, it
is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that, I'm so glad you know this information, because it is like a lot of people don't, and they're like, wait a minute, it's hot in Texas, like it's going to be hot in the water, and the way that you'd start to smell that stuff, and like really in reality you're not going to, because even though decomp has a smell of its own, I always compare it to parvo. If you have ever smelled an animal that has parvo, anytime you smell parvo, you will always smell parvo. You will always know what it is. And that's decomp. It is this sweet, nasty,
it's metallic.
Yes, it's almost like that blood. Like, and a lot of times it is because they have a lot of blood, and then people are like, well, what if she was put in there and it wiped off all the blood? And I'm like, depending on if we don't know what happened to her. Like if she was alive before they did something to her where blood, like say there was a knife or a gun used. If she was alive before this, yes, there would be blood everywhere. But if she wasn't, there wouldn't be. So there's a lot of things that people don't understand when it comes to evidence, that they're like, oh, well, I may have seen something, but I don't know. And we have had some of the most amazing people out there on social media that we haven't met, by the way. There was a tip that came in one day where actually, are you able to show stuff on here? Like if I were to send you, okay. If you look up, are you familiar with Google Maps and how to look up, like if you drop the little person in front of the apartment complex, do you know how to go back to like 2017?
Oh, go back.
So why I tell you this is because we received a tip that there was a red polo on one of the balconies of the Olympus at Ross Apartments right after she went missing. This photograph was taken by Google in one of their cars in April of 2019. They will not discuss, like anywhere. It used to tell you the exact day that Google took that picture. We've gone through all the metadata, all the everything. We cannot find out what day. I've even asked the detective to subpoena or get a warrant to figure out what day this picture was taken.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I have.
Do you have that?
I mean, I could probably try, but
it's not that big of a deal.
But I can definitely tell you, like, I understand what you're saying, because there's times when I've gone and looked up places and addresses, and it will tell you normally when this video, like when this was taken.
Yeah, you know and it just gave us April.
Like, oh, this shit's 10 years old. I don't know if it still looks like that there.
Exactly.
It's last year.
So right. There was one taken in April of 19, and we don't know. She went missing dead in the middle of the month on the 17th. So we don't know if this was before or after. This is not Ryan's apartment. I can tell you that. However, we were told it looks like a towel, like from law enforcement. I was on the phone with the detective as he's looking at this, because I'm like, look, you got to look at this on Google Maps. Like, I'm telling you, you got to look at this. And he's like, oh, it looks like it's a towel or like a robe. I'm like, why would someone have their towel or their robe just thrown up on their balcony when they live in these really nice, luxurious, is what they call them, apartments? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It looked like a wadded up red polo that she was wearing. And so we've had people combing the internet for all of those things. And we were told that it's a towel. I don't know if they ever tried to get the actual day that was taken, but if that was taken on or after the 17th, that could be evidence. And it's just, I feel like we're just at a brick wall at this point, and at least law enforcement.
You know what? Who knows if it's lack of law enforcement effort, but I do think with this case, and then maybe we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah,
don't mind. I do think, just my opinion with this case. I just even think with, I guess my opinion really doesn't matter because I don't know this person, but like with this guy Ryan, I think they need to know more about him. The babysitter, I don't get that, and there's just so many different connections. I really just don't think that going by what they've been willing to tell people, you really have like no idea. Like, there's nothing to make sense of this situation.
So basically almost everything I'm telling you has come from myself, my research, the Freedom of Information Act requests that we have put in, been denied over and over and over again. We've actually thought about suing to try and get some of these records, trying to fight. But at the end of the day, they're just going to keep I went from requesting the whole file to requesting very specific things to requesting even more specific things. Like, I only want one thing. I want a video of 15 minutes, or I want this report, or I want this body cam footage, like very specific, because they would try to say, well, you want the whole thing. We can't release the whole thing. We're not going to go through all of it to say what we can and cannot give you. So then I made it smaller and smaller and smaller and tried to get more information. And they it's crazy because the more information they send back to me, like for each different request I put in, they will send me the same basic information back after it goes to be, it has to go to the Attorney General first. And that's who tells me yes or no. And they get like 30 business days or something to do that, I think. And then it'll come back to me and they're like, well, we just can't release this because of it's, it's all, we're not going through this. We're not spending our time. Yeah, even though they the first time they let us know exactly everything that they had, which I've never had happen to me before. In the very first initial request, like those over 1,100 pages of documents and the so many hours of DVD footage and like all this stuff that they have, I have never been specifically told what they had until after they came back and said I could have it. Then they would give me like kind of an outline of what I was getting. And so I know they have a lot of information, and the information that we've obtained since has been more scarce than what we received in the beginning. I received 6 pages back from the first one. I received 2 on the very last one, or maybe 1. They give me less and less and less information each time. And so it's interesting to me that they do that, because you would think that they would have gone through this information if they were actively doing anything with it, in the last few years. And they would say, hey, this might actually jog someone's memory. This may be important, but they don't. And so people like you that don't know anything about the case, I like to talk to, because you give me an insight from a different side, from outside. I have the inside scoop, but all of you guys have the outside. And it's sometimes things that I don't even think of because I have been stuck on something very specific. And so I appreciate you guys for asking all the questions. There are no ignorant questions to me because I know just about as much as you guys do on a law enforcement level. However, I've compiled the rest, and that's just based on my business, what I do, how, I was trained. And so another thing I want to comment on that is I don't want to, like I said, I've got nicknames for him and everything. Half the time I can't stand the guy, half the time he's my best friend. But the lead detective on the case, I actually do want to give him credit for what he's done. Even though I kind of feel like there's a lot more, we could kind of scratch each other's back a little bit more. I know he's held to a standard, and his standard could make him lose his job. And I understand this. And if he were to do something that would be a misstep, it could also lead to any kind of open investigation that he already has, or closed investigations could be reopened, and there could be a lot of harm done. And that's, not what we want. And he's done a very good job. However, I will tell you, the last thing I want to, kind of comment on all of these women that go missing kind of in the same area, kind of same circumstances, like the two I mentioned in Deep Ellum. When the mother that I was talking to of one of the missing girls from Deep Ellum, she contacted the lead detective on her daughter's case in Dallas. I had almost decided, me and her stepdad, Dan, were like, we're going to fight to actually get this case transferred from Mesquite to Dallas, because I feel like Dallas is going to have a better opportunity of giving this investigation 100%. Well, I found out from this lady's mom that she called the lead detective on her missing daughter's case on a Monday morning or Monday afternoon. And he's like, ma'am, I haven't got to your daughter's missing case yet because I have 8 files on my desk of things I need to work through, and they're all just as important. Dallas it's not the best place. Don't go to Dallas if you plan on going missing. Like anybody plans on going missing. But, it's awful because they're so busy. And anytime I can, I'm like, I can't believe they haven't done as much work. I can't believe they haven't done this. And at the same time, I'm like, daggone it, they're freaking busy. They're spread so thin. Yeah. I've been working her case for 5 years, and I'm spread thin. If you think all of these cases you're just getting every day, you're adding to it. You cannot give these people 100%. You can't even give them 15%. And so there's a flaw in our system. And that's one of the biggest things, is that the way that they work crime, who works those crimes, and who determines those situations, and how long they give them. It depends on where you go missing. It depends on where you're murdered. It depends on all of these scenarios. There isn't a strict criteria across the board, and some people get left behind. And I feel like because there are so many missing people that in that area that are constantly going missing, Prisma is one of those people that is getting left behind, and I refuse to let her do that. So as much as I would love to be like, you're not doing your job, y'all, you could do so much more, I also have to really give them credit for what they have done because of how thin they're spread. And these people, there are some of these detectives that have made this case a part of their life. And I owe them a lot for that because they didn't know her. I don't know her. I've never met her, but I can tell you, if I can find that girl, we're going to be the best damn friends. I've worked so freaking hard. She going to be like my sister. We're going to be like this. But I know that's not going to be the case. But, I'd at least like to attend her funeral and give her, everything that she deserves. And so, her son too. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very well said.
Absolutely. Yeah. She deserves it. Everybody deserves it, just because she was a stripper, or just because she, went from a paralegal to something else, worked at a, pay here car lot. Your career and your choice and your path does not define you, and it shouldn't define how you are looked for if you are a part of a crime or if you are a part of a disappearance. And I feel like that gets lost. And you guys are the first people that have asked me to be on and talk about her since News Nation, and that was months ago. And I am just grateful and thankful that you guys are willing to talk about her, because that's what we need. So thank you. Just thank you.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
Appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. It was awesome.
Yeah. And all your links and everything on the bottom. I have your channel in there.
Great. Thank you.
BD, was there anything that you wanted to, say, wrap it up here?
The questions that I had have been answered, and I think Kaylee's done such a brilliant job. I didn't find any cracks where I would insert a question. I mean, it's been such an amazing, thorough coverage, and I'm really impressed with your dedication and your passion. And I just really hope we can bring this to a conclusion one way or the other at some point.
It's going to take people like you to do that. People that have questions, you know.
I'll be happy to be part of that, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa, thank you very much as well for coming on. And thank you everybody who jumped in on the live. That's what's up. We had a bunch of people there. There was a couple of people that said they came over from Redrum Media. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I hope they enjoyed the show. Yeah, and that's the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.